All right, switched on. We're back, living a switched on life. And the reason we're back today is to talk about that shooter outside the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. Not a good situation in New York City. So in this case, let's take a look at this.
Yeah.
The shooter, Mr. Vasquez of
Lewis.
the Bronx.
Yes, 52.
Louis Vasquez.
Nice
Now,
career
yeah,
criminal.
Probably shouldn't have been out of prison. Should have been in doing some time.
Yes. Multiple arrests, 6 arrests, and was convicted. And and I know, the criminal justice system, he had his day in court. He was found guilty of attempted murder of New York City's finest.
So we go over, it's Christmas time,
Yeah.
okay?
Merry Christmas.
We take my family over to the church. It's 3:45 on a beautiful Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And we don't expect this. Again, church for us, as we have grown up, church has always been our sanctity, our place of solace, a
Right.
place where we feel protected in the Lord, right?
Right.
Then we hear the shooting, which in this case, they had moved the concert due to COVID out onto the front steps.
Right.
Now, I don't know, Eric, if in New York City right now, if that was a smart move. I get it. We want to celebrate. It's Christmas time. But to move a concert when police are being defunded, we know we don't have the protection that we had in the past, and frankly, that we deserved. Fortunately, there was one security guard, and they say security guard, but my guess it was a police detail.
Right. Right.
And Vasquez opened fire from the top of the church steps,
Yes.
sending people scrambling
Yes.
and shouting, "Kill me and shoot me,"
Right.
when police got to the scene. So, switched on, what do you do in that situation? And again, you go to an outside concert, you certainly don't expect
Yeah.
a shooter on the steps of the church.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just talk about what I call 5 to survive. 5 to survive
Right.
an active shooter.
Key.
5 to survive.
Absolutely.
Basic. Let's just go over them quickly. It's important points.
Now, this is something you've preached forever. We've
Yeah.
talked about 5 to survive for many years. It's kind of a lot of what the book Switched On is keyed on.
Yeah.
What are the 5? What are the 5 to survive? And in this case, how would those 5 to survive have impacted the situation? And if I was on the steps of that church
Right.
listening to that Christmas concert, how would I use my 5 to survive?
Great question, John. So let's go back to the first one, and I mentioned it earlier. Engage all senses and instincts. That's the number one point, ladies and gentlemen. Engage your senses. That means your hearing, your eyesight, your smell. I want you to be able to identify, avoid, and escape. That is the key here. So engage all your senses and trust your instincts. If you see something, say something. NYPD came out with that slogan a decade ago.
Now, I would guess, and you would probably agree, that this guy probably didn't look like he fit in the
Correct.
crowd. I mean, and this is in New York City. I mean, look, in a small town, it's different, right? You would kind of know, all the players. So in New York City, a lot of people kind of don't fit in, right?
I hear you, but this individual's by himself with a backpack. And again, if you were switched on, you would have seen this individual acting oddly,
Right.
maybe talking to himself, maybe looking in such a way like he is assessing the situation.
So number one again is
Engage all your senses.
engage your senses.
Eyes, ears, smell. Okay? You want to, and
Check your 6.
check
I
your
learned that
6.
the last time,
Check
right?
your 6.
Check your 6. Check
But
your back.
I mean, here's, and I mean this. You want to smell and hear like a bloodhound. You want to be able to hear and smell like a bloodhound. And then you want vision like Mr. Kent, like Superman.
Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be able to see, what am I looking at? And if I
I'm more
see
of the
something,
Bionic Man kind of guy. You're
Bionic
dating
Man.
yourself. But didn't he have like
He did.
bionic vision?
Do.
All right.
do. Yeah,
Bionic
yeah.
Man. All right, that's good.
So
All
that-
right, so number one.
Yeah, exactly.
Check your senses.
Check your senses.
Right.
And number 2, scan the environment and plan.
Right.
Okay.
But
Identify.
again, you're in a church. It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
You're on church steps.
Absolutely.
You're not walking down an alley in an inner city situation. at
No, so
1 a.m.
I want you,
Your
John.
senses are telling you. Your senses are telling you that you should be safe. This is a safe haven.
You know, our pea brain should be
The pea
saying,
brain, yeah,
the
right.
pea brain should be saying to you, well, I'm in a building or I'm at an event. Simple.
Right.
I want my mind to say, again, if something happens, what is my primary and what is my secondary exits? Entrances and exits. That's
So
it.
no matter
Simple.
where.
No matter
whether
where.
You're walking into Christmas Eve Mass.
Yeah.
Take a glance around.
Yeah.
And say, okay. It's terrible that we have to do that.
It is.
today.
It is terrible.
But I will tell you, probably the reason you're here is your father did that in the 60s and
I learned
70s.
that. So I like to say, John, no matter where you play, no matter where you pray, you need to be switched on, ladies and gentlemen.
No matter where you play,
Or pray.
no matter where you pray. That's a terrible thing. You know, we grew up, right? I mean, Reed switched on the heart and mind of a special agent. And, you know, there are stories of your father leading a family of 7, a good Catholic family of 7,
Yeah.
city police officer down to St. James Church in New Bedford to pray. And
Absolutely.
the last thing, I'm sure the last thing on his mind was somebody's going to come in and there's going to be an active shooter situation.
Yeah.
However, I'll bet even back in the late 60s and 70s, Sergeant Ed Karen was eyeballing that place. You didn't know it. Your mom didn't know it, but he was a police officer. So he knew that he would have to keep an eye on things well before
Yeah.
active shooting situations, right?
Absolutely. He what I like to say, all his senses were engaged.
Right.
Even in the 1960s and 70s and early 80s, his senses were engaged. He could smell danger. He could hear danger like a canine. He could see danger like Superman.
Right.
And that's what we have to do today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and, you know, we're living in a different time. But yeah, Sergeant Karen in the 1960s and 70s, as he brought his family into church, he was switched on.
Right.
And he was ready to identify. He was identifying potential threats and how am I going to keep my family of 7 safe? And where am I going
If it happens.
if it happens?
And you learn that from your Marine Corps father.
It did, and and ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today again to tell you it saved my life probably on at least 2 or 3 occasions. 2 or 3 occasions.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. It's in
Right
the
here.
book.
It's in,
And I
switched on.
and so identify your primary and secondary
Okay.
entrances and exits, and then also your safe havens. Where am I going now if something was to happen? Is it under a table? Is it under a car? Is it down the stairs into a kitchen? Is it out the window? And then number 3 is cover and concealment. To understand the difference, John. Understand that if
You know what? Let's go to the video.
I think we
Because
should
when
go
you
to the
watch
video.
this video. Let's roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
So right here, let's talk. You brought out to me before the podcast
Yeah.
about the issue on cover and concealment.
So cover, concealment. If poop hits the fan, bullets are flying. Where are you going? And I want to make sure I'm behind, basically cover, because concealment is essentially something that I can hide behind. Maybe I don't know, under a table, maybe behind a mailbox, maybe behind a trash can. That's concealment. I mean,
So you have to scope that out before
you do.
issue. So you walk into church. I walk into church. It's Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
All right. I'm with my family.
True.
Maybe I have a few in me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm relaxed.
You're
I'm in
relaxed.
that place. The Christmas music is playing, and the
True.
choir is singing the hymns.
True.
I'm going to come in and say, okay, if an active shooter comes in here, I'm going to head out that door. I'm going to get under the organ. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing.
Correct.
I really have to do that.
You
I
do.
mean, I should do that.
You should do that.
Give it a moment. Take
Give it a
that
s-
second.
Take that 5 seconds.
Right.
Because once again, the mind will go to the pre-rehearsed plan.
Okay.
If there's no plan,
Makes sense.
what happens is that you freeze, just like the individuals behind the pole in the video.
Yeah, there they are.
They're holding
They're
they're
freezing.
holding and they're freezing.
Yeah.
And
And
they
they're
don't-
behind. Think about this. They're at the base of the stairs. You can see here. The shooter's on the top of the stairs, so he's got the vantage point.
You
right?
think?
He's in the watchtower.
Yeah.
And they're standing behind a pole.
Right.
So
Understand-
Do I freeze there behind the pole? Do I try to run and take cover?
Exactly.
What's number 3?
So that cover and concealment is number 3. Understanding the difference. Understanding that concealment is you're going to hide, right? But it's not necessarily going to stop a bullet coming through that
Yeah.
that platform you're hiding behind.
Yeah, I'm a pretty wide guy. I'm standing behind a pole. You know.
So you want cover. So you have 2 images. You have NYPD behind their vehicles,
Yeah. Right.
engines. That's cover concealment, and
Which
then
is that's what you see in the movies all the time. That's what you know.
That's good.
They get behind, open the car door and kneel behind the car door and take up the gun, and that's kind of the movie scene.
But it's that round that will not penetrate more than likely the engine block unless it's a high velocity round.
Okay.
The other image that you'll see are NYPD officers, God bless them, who didn't run away, ran towards the violence, ran towards the shooting while everybody else was running away. Yeah. These brave officers were running towards the gunman, and their best items to get behind was it looked like garbage cans.
Yeah, and apparently that's what happened here. It looks like Sergeant Cunningham, who has been with the department for 18 years.
Yeah.
It's probably not his first rodeo. He was at the scene as a paid security guard, so he was a detail at the scene, and he was able to take care of business there.
Yeah.
And this guy Vasquez had gasoline cans, knives, and a Bible in his bag.
Yeah.
God-fearing gentleman. And he was armed.
He was.
thought
He had
this
2.
out. He was ready to go. He wasn't just walking down the street, happen to have a gun and decide, I think I'm going to lose it and go do this. He prepared.
He did. He was prepared.
Oh,
And again, he was prepared. He was 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else, obviously. He knew what he was going to do. He had a plan. He had 2 handguns. He was shooting from the top of the stairs down onto the pedestrians. And so understand, where am I going? Where's my cover? Where's my concealment? Understand, ideally both. You like to have cover and concealment.
Right.
And so these brave officers were behind concealment, but not necessarily cover.
There was an interesting take from a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He's Eugene O'Donnell, and he's a former NYPD officer. And he was quoted as saying, the training for New York City cops is, here's a gun, take cover, and pray you never have to use it. And O'Donnell said the officers were left, in this case, with no choice but to take fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, John, the truth of the matter is police departments across America barely have enough money to arm police officers today.
Yeah.
and barely have
And-
enough
and-
money
right. And we
to
want to take,
train them.
And we're at a place now where we want to take assets away from police officers, which makes
The truth of the matter is,
absolutely no
these
sense.
police officers, if they're lucky, go to the range once, twice a year.
Right.
Maybe twice, maybe.
And in the business, as you know, they call it, when they see a guy like this, they call it dead ending. Like this guy is only going out dead. He's going to shoot or ignite his gasoline.
Suicide by cop.
Suicide by cop. And that was his intent.
Yeah.
His intentions in this case were crystal clear. And you could be going to a church concert on the steps of the cathedral and encounter this guy.
Exactly. Engage all senses, number one. Scan the environment, right? And plan. Number three, scan people. Scan the individuals in the environment that you're in.
As I've said in past podcasts, Eric, it seems like a lot of work.
No,
It's a lot of
it's
work.
not. It's
But
not
I
a
think
lot of
once-
work.
Right.
It's
once
not.
you-
Once you practice, it's like, anything else. Again, it's like
Right.
that second baseman who's playing second base, and he knows the man on first, where am I going? I've got two options. Either I'm going to second base or I'm going to first base. It's muscle memory. So it's not a lot of work. I'm saying practice it, rehearse it in your mind, and you will survive. You will live for another day.
Yeah, and you'll need a plan when this guy with a gun in each hand is yelling, "Shoot me, shoot me, shoot me."
Yeah, he doesn't care if you're 80 years old or 15 years old.
No, this
He's
guy-
just shooting.
This guy wants to die.
So scan the environment for people that look out of the ordinary. People with backpacks, right? People that may be by themselves talking to themselves. And you know what? Say something. See something, say something. It's not going to hurt anyone. Hey, officer, that man over there's been standing there for the last 15 minutes, and he's talking to himself, and he's got a backpack. I don't
And
say
there's a high
it.
likelihood that officer might know the guy. He might be a regular weirdo that they know,
Right.
or a regular homeless person they just know has some issues.
Right.
It's not going to do any harm to anybody, but
True.
they'll appreciate that call out. They'll appreciate that concern,
Right.
certainly, right?
Right. So now, let's just, for argument's sake, John, now poop has hit the fan. All right. You're at an event, and all of a sudden, poop hits the fan.
And don't think, just to jump in here
Yeah.
for a second, it's interesting because in this case, Judy Romer, who was a neighbor and a resident, said at first she thought it was the end of the performance. Like they made a loud noise to close the event, like it was part of the show. You don't expect it to be an active shoot. You're thinking, yeah, right, it's Christmas, right?
It's Christmas. You're not expecting on a 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock on an afternoon on Christmas.
Because you're in church. You're at that place
I know.
where you're
I'm
supposed
sorry.
to feel safe.
You're supposed to be, but
yeah, and here
we,
comes this special agent guy telling me I've got to scan the room.
yeah.
All right, Eric, let's talk about number 4 now. Breathe.
Yeah, it's
That's easy to do.
yeah. Well, it sounds easy,
Mr.
right?
Vasquez is shooting the place up, and you're asking me to breathe. Breathe.
Breathe.
It's good.
So you saw what happened when you're not breathing. You got two people stuck to a pole in that video.
Yeah.
It's because they're not breathing. So when I say breathe, it's breathing in such a way that you're hearing your voice and you're trying to break that tunnel vision. 'Cause I'm locked on. You're in that. There's a shooting situation. Again, it's not like the movies, right? So
Right.
you got people screaming around you. You're hearing gunshots that most people have never heard. And so so the breathing does that. Just like I practice, it breaks the tunnel vision.
2 off-duty officers who just happened to be working that day, or in the area that day, they took cover. And you can see here that they took cover behind some barrels, and they were able to probably breathe and assess the situation, and then they were able to take Vasquez out.
So let's be clear. That wasn't cover.
That wasn't cover.
That was concealment.
But if it's all you've got,
If it's all you got, then you go for
all
it.
you got.
I'm not criticizing NYPD. Those
Right.
two officers are They're brave heroes.
Sure.
I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference. Understand the difference. Understand that a round coming from a weapon will not stop will not protect you if you're behind a barrel.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. You'd rather be behind a motor vehicle, an engine or a refrigerator,
Right.
if you will.
Right.
So it could have been a lot worse. Thank God that no one was killed. This individual was hell bent on killing many, many individuals that day.
You
So
know,
God bless
Yeah.
the men and women in blue at the local, state,
Absolutely right, Eric.
and federal level.
Yeah.
So number 5, John,
Mm-hmm.
it's the mantra. Identify, avoid, and escape. Always identify, avoid, and escape.
Let's take that. Identify, avoid, escape.
Escape.
Get that in the
Pea brain. And do not be the person during an active shooter on the telephone, filming,
Right.
calling
Yeah.
your mom, calling
no
your
need.
dad.
Yeah. Worry about living before you're worrying about selling the video to TMZ. You
Yeah.
know, you don't need to videotape this moment.
You see
Throw the phone down.
You see in that video, there's somebody obviously
Yeah.
across the street.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah,
that
videotape
round
it.
that round
So-
continues.
So think about that person. Think about that person. They're across the street. There's an active shooter. And let me
Right in
just
front
think,
of 'em.
Let me get this video. This is going to be great on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And,
Right.
and hey, this is going to make a great little, Snapchat.
Yeah, you don't want to be a statistic.
Yeah.
And so identify,
That gets-
avoid,
yeah,
escape.
That gets us smarting up, and no matter how you look at
Right.
it.
So get away. Get away from the scene. As far as space, distance is your friend. Get away from a scene, get away from an active shooter.
Because in this case, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about what Mr. Vasquez had in his little magic pack, in his backpack.
Yeah.
Which backpacks in 2020 are not good things typically, unless you're on a college campus, right? But Mr. Vasquez had 2 semi-automatic guns, carrying which contained a full container of gasoline, rope, wires, knives, and a Bible.
Correct.
Again, God-fearing man, I guess.
So he was going to do something very, very evil.
Yeah.
My
big and
guess
evil.
my guess was he was going to try to burn down the church with people inside, and or try to take hostages and murder as many people as he could. So unfortunately, there are individuals like Mr. Vasquez who are on our streets.
Right.
We have to identify them. We have to identify, avoid them, and escape them.
And be switched on.
Be switched on so you can live for another day.
Now, I was touched by what I read here when the folks from the choir said in a statement, "It's horrible that our choir's gift to New York City, a much-needed afternoon of song and unity, was cut short by this shocking act of violence. We will remain strong together and serve as a space for prayer, mediation, and celebration during the upcoming holiday season. We are grateful to our first responders, and our prayers are with all those affected by this evening. And as are we, grateful for us first responders." All right, Eric, as we go into what we hope will be a joyous holiday season,
Yeah.
we want to have that place of sanctity, our churches, and we want to worship and be with family. But as we do, quickly recap those 5 to survive.
Engage all your senses.
1,
Scan the environment.
2,
Scan for bad guys. 3.
bad guys. Bad guys, scan for bad guys, all right?
4. Breathe. Breathe
That's
through.
important. That's probably the most important and probably the most difficult one, right? In that situation.
Because you're
But
frozen.
4 is breathe. So we're going to breathe. Deep breaths. Lamar's method. Get
Thank
that
you.
breathing going.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. Like a jet fighter.
Good point. Keep those G's down,
Exactly.
right?
5, the mantra. Identify, avoid, escape, live for another day.
Identify, avoid,
Yep.
escape.
Live for another day.
All right. And with that, the 5 to survive are at switchedonlife.com.
It is.
Many stories relating to this, as you said, in the book, Switched On, The Heart and Mind of a Special Agent, which you can get online or Amazon and all the usual places.
Absolutely.
And with that, we'll wish everybody sort of a joyous and happy holiday season and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Be safe. Stay switched on.